Welcome to Tales from the Civil War, Episode 2, Fun Facts About the Famous. Robert E. Lee was the son of a Revolutionary War hero. Lee's father was also a gambler, a womanizer, who abandoned his wife and children. Lee's mother was determined her son would not be like his father. She instilled discipline in young Robert, and it worked. When he went to West Point Academy, Lee didn't get a single demerit. Later, as an adult, Lee didn't smoke, drink alcohol, or gamble, and he remained faithful to his wife during their long marriage. Lee served in the Mexican War under General Winfield Scott, who thought Lee was the finest officer he commanded. Because of Scott, President Lincoln offered Lee command of the entire U.S. Army at the start of the Civil War. Lee turned him down, saying that he could not fight against his family, his friends, in Virginia. So, instead of becoming the North's most famous general, Lee became the South's. No general in the Civil War was more revered by his men than Lee. And from June of 1862 to June of 1863, his army was nearly unbeatable. Lee won 4 battles against 4 different Union generals. That means he went 4-0-1, if you count Antietam as a tie. Yet my favorite story of Lee has nothing to do with one of these victories. It's what Lee did during one of these battles that is so incredible. Imagine tens of thousands of soldiers fighting, rifles firing, cannons blazing, the fog of war surrounding him. When Lee suddenly bent down and scooped something off the ground, then walked a short distance and put something in a tree. He mounted his horse Traveler and rode away without saying a word. The Confederate soldiers who were with him had to know what he had done, so one of them rode over to the tree and saw that in the middle of a battle, Robert E. Lee had noticed a baby bird that had fallen out of its nest and had scooped it up and put it back in the nest, so hopefully it wouldn't be harmed. At the end of the war, Lee would hold the fate of not only his army and the Confederacy in his hands, he would hold the fate of the entire United States. How? Alas, that is another tale from the Civil War. Ulysses S. Grant was the Union general that would one day accept Lee's surrender. He had a humble beginning. For one thing, Ulysses S. Grant wasn't his real name. When he was born, his parents named him Hiram Ulysses Grant. That's right, Grant's initials spelled the word hug. Born in O-H-I-O. Grant didn't want to tan horses like his father, so he went to West Point Academy, where his name was changed by mistake to Ulysses S. Grant. The S stands for nothing. Grant merely shrugged when told of the error and went by the name Ulysses S. Grant for the rest of his life. Grant didn't enjoy his time at West Point, but he did end up marrying his roommate's sister. They would have 4 children together. Grant fought in the Mexican War and afterward was sent by the Army to California. Since Army pay was so low, he couldn't afford to bring his wife and kids with him, and Grant became lonely and bored. And he drank. A lot. Accused of drunkenness, Grant resigned from the Army in disgrace. After returning to his family, he failed at several jobs and became so desperate, he went to work for his father in Illinois. The Civil War gave Grant a second chance, and he made the most of it. Grant had something rarely seen in war, 4 o'clock in the morning call. Grant could be woken up by panicked officers at 4 in the morning. "We're being overrun, General, we're being overrun." And Grant would calmly put his boots on, light a cigar. He smoked 20 a day and later died of throat cancer. And Grant would say, "Well, let's see what can be done about that." Grant also had his quirks. He hated the sight of blood and had to have his meat cooked well done. He couldn't stand cruelty to horses, and he had no time for fancy uniforms or music. Grant had the tenacity of a pit bull. Once Grant sunk his teeth into you, he wouldn't let go. As Lincoln once said, "I can't spare this man. He fights." In 1864, Grant would be given command of all U.S. armies. Not bad for someone who once drank himself out of the Army. How did Grant achieve this? Alas, that is another tale from the Civil War. Tune in for our next episode, and remember, we don't just study history, we live it.